Welcome to the Lanbrew podcast. This is episode what?
Episode 3.
4.
Episode 4?
Yeah,
No.
because we did Blair Witch was 3.
What was 2?
I don't know.
I think this is the third movie that we've done though. We did Force Awakens, we did Blair Witch, and then we did A New Hope.
Oh, it's all the Star Wars like. Let's watch episode 4 and then 7 and then.
Today is episode 3, where we're talking about episode 4.
Yeah. So
A New Hope.
Well, I made a podcast about MacBook Pros
All right.
that I called I think I called it 3.
What did you?
So this is technically 4, but
Yeah.
it's the third installment of
I see what you're saying.
our franchise series. What were we saying?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, what I say about the MacBook Pros?
Oh,
I
yeah.
really just went on a rant about why I'm not going to buy one.
Yeah. I think they're gonna be cool, but
Yeah.
I'll wait.
I'll wait.
You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe popular opinion will. The dollars, people's dollars. Maybe we'll get back a headphone jack in the new iPhones.
Yeah, or I guess if it does advance technology, then I'll just let everybody else do the advancing, and then get it when it's like.
You're not going to be an early adopter on the touch bar.
Yeah. So we were. This episode has been a long time coming because we were gonna do this originally
Right.
right after Force Awakens, and then
So we had Halloween,
we had Halloween
and then I snuck in a MacBook Pro
podcast.
and so this is technically episode 4 with episode 4.
Hey, that's cool.
There you go.
Okay.
You're welcome.
We just watched this thing.
We watched it. We watched episode 4, and
It's been a while. And you were saying that you had already seen it again this year at some point.
yeah, I think earlier this year I had watched this movie. So for all who don't know, well, nobody knows. I'm such a huge Star Wars fan that I watch all of them, seven now, every year, and it was 6, right? So I was watching all 6 every year since they released episode 3?
Episode 3.
Yeah, on DVD or whatever. So I've been doing that every year since what was that, 2006 probably. I mean, I know it came out in 05, but
Probably 06. 10 years.
wow, man. And I'm 30 on
In a week.
a week from today.
Wow.
Dude, time flies.
Time flies.
So anyway, we watched 4. I've seen it once this year already.
I can't remember
When was the last time you watched it? Yeah,
that I've seen it, Or I don't know. I mean,
maybe 10 years.
No, I don't think that long, but I know that probably the last thing that I watched was Empire.
Okay.
I think I'll throw that in more often. Like we were talking about before, sort of the, I'm 29. I feel like I'm getting more mature by default. It just happens. You can't help it. But the younger version of myself when I was in film school, and was more militant about my opinions. I think that I kind of didn't. It's kind of connected to sort of to not appreciating Jurassic Park or Star Wars: A New Hope because they're for kids or for whatever,
Okay.
And I could remember watching A New Hope and being like, this lighting is
What
too
were they
high
thinking?
key,
It's too grainy.
the camera's not moving enough or whatever.
What's up with these transitions?
Yeah, why isn't this Boogie Nights? Just or why isn't this Empire?
Yeah, sure.
Empire is a
Sure.
feels better, but
So this was before Nikhil Beauplay was on IMDb,
maybe.
and I want to mention that to our listeners, whoever you are listening to this podcast.
Oh no.
Mr. Beauplay is on IMDb. Go look him up.
Yeah, but porn stars are on IMDb, so.
Hey, man.
I mean, I have a couple credits, but but they're mostly all like
For porn.
for porn. But
Regular Stallone over here.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
but instead of the Italian stallion,
So-
it's like Indian Indian villain or something.
We'll come up with a witty name by the end of the
Yeah.
podcast for your porn name.
Yeah.
So anyway, this
some-
was a viewing of non-critical Nikhil eyes.
I think so. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that it's like, you know, I think the older that you get,
The Indian feeling. That didn't rhyme. That rhymed in my head.
it's got to be
didn't-
like it's got to be something about a mustache or something. Like,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
you know,
The older we get.
the older that we get. Well, it's just that it's funny how I can remember a time when I didn't appreciate this movie, you know, because I thought that it
Crazy
wasn't
to me.
that it wasn't. And I mean, I liked it. You know, I thought it was good. I thought, you know, it's always been Star Wars, but you know, Empire is like it's and that probably still is the case that like if we watch Empire after this screening, that I'll appreciate that film even more. I'll be even more impressed by it.
Sure.
And I know that there are aspects of just that film feels more sophisticated. However, I guess I'm just so much. Part of this has been some of the Star Wars research that I've been doing about reading about how they made this movie, and this watching it this time, it's just kind of undeniable. And like I know this sounds like obvious,
Mm-hmm.
but this movie is really fucking good, you know. And
Yeah, it is.
And I guess maybe in comparison to our last Star Wars screening, which is Force Awakens,
Mm-hmm.
I can comfortably say that I believe that this is a much better movie than Force Awakens. It's better as a piece of art and as a piece of like filmmaking than that movie.
I'm gonna agree with you. I really do.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I feel like The Force Awakens is amazing. It's a great movie,
It's good.
but it's like too good. It's like there's every rough edge was nicked off before they released that thing because of everything we talked about in that podcast. This one was like,
Well, it's diff. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I was gonna agree with you. This one's a piece of art. This one feels like a piece of art. I think The Force Awakens feels like packaged and delivered, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So like you know, there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. We have written some things down. I don't know if we can get through all of them.
Yeah.
You know, something that we talked about in the last podcast was our Blair Witch podcast was this idea that the first time that something is done, whether it's experimental found footage narrative or like a modern sci-fi opera and all that entails, that the first iteration of that concept or the first execution of that concept is probably going to be stronger than the next one.
Yeah.
You know, and so that does not mean so. And in the context of this podcast, that's not A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back. We're talking about A New Hope to Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Because Force Awakens was the reboot, the remake of A New Hope,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it seems like maybe the operating theory that I am exploring is that there are things that the filmmakers took for granted in Force Awakens,
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
right? That just that they're obviously thinking about as much as they can because there's a lot. It's like how do we make a good Star Wars film? But comparing the two films, it seems like to me the original film is just stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is George Lucas. I think that George Lucas is a great filmmaker, and I think that I think that fact is on display in the opening scene of the movie. And you can talk about like starting from frame one. You know, like any movie, you can just kind of tell if it's good or not, like in the way that the images unfold and the weight that those images have. And I do feel that like the way, like the famous opening Star Destroyer reveal is one of the best opening shots and scenes in any movie in the history of cinema. And like and what we're talking about is like, imagine what this fucking thing would have been like if we were there in '77.
Yeah, right.
Sitting
right.
there, like how it looks, how it feels,
Yeah.
like you've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
But even more so than that opening shot, which is fucking awesome, is the editing inside of the rebel ship.
Yeah.
Like once the stormtroopers storm, like first there's the build up to it.
Right, everyone's getting in place, facing the door,
these shots,
ready for them to come in,
and then they burst in and there's a firefight, and like it's very clear to me that George Lucas is fucking on it. Like he has his editing, like his shot selection and his editing is like that's where the strength of this movie is. It's very strong. Like it feels like very specific and muscular film editing to construct like energy and rhythm and pacing, and that's something that I don't feel is in the new Star Wars film.
Yeah,
you know,
I can agree with that.
Like that film, and like kind of like what you're talking about with the rough edges being removed. It's like the rough edges were removed, so everything it looks like better than it ever looked.
Yeah,
but
it flows. There's energy constantly.
And it's like you kind of skim over the holes.
Yeah,
you know
exactly. What I mean? So everything you're saying right now,
yeah,
with his editing skill and the shot selection,
and George Lucas, he was an editor. He was an experimental filmmaker at USC, and like the things that he was doing, and I guess like applying that type of filmmaking, which is like basically sort of like putting images together, colliding them to make something powerful.
Yeah,
that was combined with like samurai films and all this shit to like make this really strong.
Well, so let's jump to the desert scene with the droids.
With the droids, yeah.
Probably the most boring scene in the entire movie.
You were talking about it.
Yeah, when R2-D2 and C-3PO land
and argue
in Tatooine, on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And they argue and they split up. And we had a discussion during the movie about, and I brought it up, like, why are these two characters that we don't, I mean, if you're watching with fresh eyes, we don't know who they are. We know that R2's like has important information, right? And we don't know where we are. We don't know what's happening, and we're just watching these two like droids. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's like it's the juxtaposition of these like technological marvels in a desert.
Well, I mean,
desolation.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, they're not separated for that long.
It's true.
It's like,
and so that was the point, though.
Yeah,
was like, why separate them?
Yeah, because
if they're just gonna get captured by the Jawas 5 minutes later.
I mean, it is. I don't think I really ever thought about it that way. It is. I think it is entertaining. Like, you know, it's like something is happening, because I guess the other option is that they keep them together and have them get captured, but just they're together, they get captured by the Jawas, and then they're in the sandcrawler together. And everything can still happen the way that it happens. But I think in this way, you know, at the very least, like, it just makes it more watchable.
It's busy. It's like
it's busy.
Yeah.
There's mystery that's like unfolding. You don't know what's gonna happen.
We're seeing two parts of that world that they're on. We get to see like the canyon with R2 and like the more sprawling open desert with C-3PO and the skeleton of that monster, whatever it was. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we get to see.
But also, like, if, I don't know, maybe Destiny or something.
Oh, that too. That's a great point.
Because, like, you know, like, I mean, so part of it is like the characters. Like,
well, and you said that built their characters.
Their friendship
a little more. Their relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, and I think that like that scene seemed to pay off more at the end of the movie when R2-D2 is like dead, and C-3PO is like freaking out after the Death Star blew up, and it's like, oh, like, save him, please, like, I can donate parts of my body, you know. So it's this odd couple relationship, I think, is like somehow, you know, and maybe that's also part of it. If George Lucas needs to sell us on the reality of this fantasy film by making us relate to these droids, by believing in their bickering relationship,
their AI.
Yeah, that it's not about that, like, that we just buy into their personalities.
Yeah.
And the fact that these characters are suddenly like not hanging out together, and then they're back together, and there's like some danger involved. You know, like I feel like it kind of anthropomorphizes them quickly, because it's like a 5 minute sequence. Like
Yeah.
they fight, then R2's like scared, like wandering through the canyons, and then he gets caught, and there's no humans,
Right.
and so we are identifying with this robot trash can,
Yeah, you're right.
you know, versus the
Yeah.
Jawas, and so it's
Yeah.
like, and so it's like, and I don't know if that sets us up for the rest of the movie to be like, I'm in for whatever else is going on.
So I mean that, and I think we've covered it, but and I think what you're saying is that this film totally holds up for fresh eyes, and it was just fantastic for fresh eyes.
Yeah, yes and no, yeah.
What are your no's?
Well, I guess the only no would be, I think it really does. I think it does hold up. I think it's a great movie. I think it's one of the best movies ever made. You know.
Yeah.
But there are things about Force Awakens, like kineticism and the energy of Force Awakens that is, like I found myself getting a little almost bored
With the Force.
with A New Hope at certain
Oh,
moments.
okay, yeah.
You know, just certain moments, and I don't know if I can recall them specifically, but just kind of like, I don't know, even the Death Star battle. There's kind of it's paced really wonderfully and designed and kind of structured really well, but I'm just kind of like waiting a little bit for stuff to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and
there are moments, there are lulls
There-
in this movie.
Yeah.
But those are some of the edges, and I feel like The Force Awakens, in filmmaking, the state of filmmaking right now, like they know how to control our emotions, right? And we kind of discussed this, I think, with Blair Witch, with like the jump scare, right?
Mm.
And them using, and there's a great video out. I forget who made it, but it's a guy who breaks down the jump scare and like how the music, how it's a very strict formula for a jump scare, more so than like I realized what was going on, or more so than like anybody realizes right before you have your hands in front of your eyes, like you know it's coming, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's a huge with episode 7. I think that it's maybe the difference between kids in this world, a kid from 3 years old to 10 years old, we'll say, getting an iPhone, whereas like you and I, when we were 3 and 10, we had to use our imaginations a lot more to create those kinds of experiences with anything that we had in our world, because that stuff didn't exist, right? I think kids today don't have to imagine as much with a stick as much as like you and I had to imagine that was a lightsaber. You know, these kids today are getting lightsabers, and I feel like, to bring it back to the film, they're getting plastic lightsabers, right?
Yeah.
Episode 4 asks the audience member to use their imagination while they're watching this beautiful piece of art, and filling in the gaps where maybe they made a mistake in filmmaking, or maybe this wasn't explained great, or maybe this is a boring moment. We need you to please use your imagination. And A Force Awakens like doesn't do that. It just force feeds us.
Shows
like,
you everything.
Here's an iPhone, kid.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's this this is a tangent into comic book movies,
Okay.
but I think it's a good one, which is that there's this article by or interview with Jonathan Lethem. I think he's a novelist, and I think he's written novels. Like one of his novels was called Fortress of Solitude, which is like related to comic books. I haven't read it, but in the interview that he was talking about, he was asked about the state of superhero movies, and he said that something to the effect that modern superhero films are completely lacking in any kind of imagination. And it's ironic because that's sort of the whole point of comic books, because you're forced to use your imagination, and
Yeah.
that the real magic of a comic book, of a page or of a panel is, I guess, and I could be wrong with this industry terminology, but like what the gutters, So and like the gutters are the spaces in between
The cells.
the panels. And so it's like,
Yeah, the
like
panels.
seeing Batman in one panel and then suddenly he's like in the air. It's like we have to use our imagination to connect that.
Right.
Now, like, I think something that happens I mean, like, obviously it's different in movies because we're seeing, it's like the gutters are different. The gutters are almost like or like between scenes sometimes,
Films are like too afraid to have gutters.
yeah, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
But like, Star Wars: A New Hope has gutters. Like, I think, one kind of gutter that we talked about maybe in Force Awakens or Blair Witch. I can't remember which, but we talked about the Ben Kenobi gutter. Obi-Wan Kenobi's death
Oh yeah.
is kind of a gutter
Yeah.
because it happens in such a way where like it feels like you like that, like you miss something, or even when Obi-Wan like slices the dude's arm off
Yeah.
in the cantina.
And we're like looking at his arm.
Yeah, it's like it happens so quickly, and you kind of don't see everything. That that cantina itself is like I think a gutter, and it's like a pretty interesting comparison to Maz Kanata's bar.
Yeah.
Because Maz Kanata's bar feels like Disneyland. It feels like a fake bar.
And you mentioned that while we were watching that this bar in 4 feels like a bar.
It
feels like a CD, like classics.
It feels like a real divey, sketchy place that's dangerous.
Like and for everyone who doesn't live in Oklahoma, Classics is like this seedy bar in the middle of Oklahoma City.
By the railroad tracks.
Literally by the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
That is like a room that they've like added a couple things to make you feel. It feels like the Star Wars cantina.
And bad shit can happen. And,
yeah,
and,
if
and
you
goes
like
down.
piss the wrong person off.
And like all and all that is like, so a movie that I watched recently, and nothing against Ron Howard or Tom Hanks. I like both of those guys a lot, but I saw Inferno.
Oh, dude,
Recently.
that flop.
It was like almost incomprehensible.
Really?
This
It was
movie-
that bad?
It was like insane. Like, me and my friend watched it, and we were talking about it like as soon as it was over, just trying to like figure out what the fuck we just watched, like the plot of it, and just like trying to kind of like figure out what it was what the plot was and why it was so confusing. And even when we thought we figured out like all the pieces, it was still didn't make any sense. Like, it still didn't make sense, like why they even had a story in the first place. So the point of that is that like I felt kind of similarly to Force Awakens, especially in comparison to A New Hope. And like I think we talked about this last time, which was that one of the arguments that you hear is that Force Awakens is trying to do something differently than A New Hope, which it is, because it has different. We like A New Hope is a standalone film, was supposed to work that way. Force Awakens is designed as the first part of a trilogy, but I think I think that remakes and reboots and all that stuff that we're living in, this age that we're living in, is very tricky, constantly tricky, because we have so much information to balance in our heads as viewers, And so I don't even know how you can even make a good movie.
Well, you mentioned that in the first pocket. There's so much baggage.
There's a lot of baggage
when you're taking on a franchise, and that's why I will always go back to saying that like Episode 7 is fantastic, because it takes that baggage and it handles it very well to get me back into what George Lucas took me out of with the prequels.
Yeah, that's all true. Yes, and it felt good to be back in Star Wars again.
Yeah,
but the excitement wasn't enough to ignore kind of like the holes in Maz Kanata's place.
Sure.
Because if you think about like the function of that, like, and like for kids watching it, like as a kid watching the movie, I think that this film, I think George Lucas did such an incredible job. Like this is one of the greatest like productions of all time. Like the fact that he pulled any of this stuff off, like the rewrites, if you read about the original drafts of Star Wars, it's crazy how different it was and how bad that those versions would have been. Like too much too much detail and information about stuff that we don't give a shit about. You know,
Episode 1.
episode 1. You know, like kyber crystals and like Han Solo was an alien, or like things that would have made it differently, made it different, and also the fact that what we end up with is something that is like a distilled down fairy tale. You know, and it's precisely good because of the gutters, because of the things that we have to use our imaginations for, because it's kind of like very, it's just kind of like mythological characters. It's mythology, and I think that like going back to Inferno, like the incomprehensibility of that film. It's like I don't. It was unclear to me like what I was supposed to take away from Force Awakens, other than like stay tuned for next week, Whereas in this movie, it's like, there are so many moments where I'm feeling like moved, as a human being, going on this journey, and like it's like a classic hero's journey, and everything is kind of set up and like calibrated like perfectly. But you were talking about like when Luke is looking at the two suns, and just how like what that moment feels like, and
well, that's when the score picks up, and like
yeah,
and we were talking a little bit about
John Williams.
John Williams, yeah.
It's the writing of it, it's the editing of it, because it's edited so efficiently and quickly that there's never really any. I mean, like and like the lag time, and like the boring stuff in the movie isn't really that. It's not that boring. It's like the movie is so good that there are moments where you start to kind of slip. It almost gets boring, but the movie is so tight and so fast that it seems much more on its toes than Force Awakens, But it's just the fact that Force Awakens benefits from like all the technology, and the gizmos, to sort of hide the fact that its story construction is not as strong, it's not as tight, and it's not as like well thought out, and so it's like. It felt like George Lucas had a mission for what he wanted this movie to accomplish, and so everything was perfectly timed out and calibrated to sort of hit these moments. And so, like when we get to the moment where Luke is looking at the twin suns, and we feel John Williams' score, it's like perfect. It's like the perfect marriage of like the music in that moment for us to feel like young people on the verge of something.
Yeah. Well, it's a boring moment. Like if you look at it on its face, if you just jumped into that moment and you didn't know what happened before and you don't see what happens afterwards, where like R2 runs off, it's a boring moment. It's just like this random kid looking at two moons or two suns, and why is it interesting, right? I mean, I know on its face, like, and they even zoom in on the two suns. That's interesting on its own, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, we just have like this good-looking guy, Mark Hamill, like staring off into the distance, right?
Yeah.
But then you couple everything else that's happening around it, you couple the score in with it. It's just this beautiful moment that in any other place would be boring, but it's just, you can't look away.
Yeah. I mean, like a moment that is not boring because of the story, but is similar, is when he comes back to find his aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think the same thing with the music, but also just like the way that his like face is like looking down.
Yeah.
And just like it's one of those things where because I think part of the story of Star Wars and the production of it that's interesting is that George Lucas did not really think he wanted to make a good movie, but he did not expect John Williams' score. Like, I think he was expecting it to be like a space fantasy. And I think if the music had been any different, then I think our Star Wars would have been different. Synthesizers or whatever,
Sure.
But John Williams' score is like one of the best scores of all time.
Yeah.
It's like transcendent. It's like lifting. It's huge, It's like the greatest adventure you can think of. And that adventure happens to resonate with all these with all of the epic moments in a person's life going on a journey, like of a young person's life. And so I think that makes it even larger. And I think that for me, in this viewing, it was like the scene where he comes back and is seeing his aunt and his uncle, and the music that we're hearing, and then like the way that we're looking at Luke, and then also like that shot, like when it cuts back, and he's like standing there. There's a close up on his face, then like a wider shot from the back, and just like it's like shit gets really real and like serious at that moment. Real fast.
Up to then, it's been and that moment sticks with you, right? Because up to then, it's been this kind of
goofy,
safe movie.
Yeah.
And then you see two fried corpses, and you realize like, hey, these dudes running around with plastic armor on, actually like mess people up and like fry them.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at corpses that these stormtroopers have left behind. And yeah, you're right, it gets real.
There's resolve.
Yeah.
Like that is like it's sad and it's real, you know.
Well, you know, and a point that I just brought up there that I'm having this little dialogue in my head. But fast forward to when we're on the Death Star and they're like running around and the stormtroopers are almost like campy.
The movie gets funnier like later.
It's so up and down.
Yeah.
Like
the film feels most like the 70s when it's Han and Luke and Leia like running around like yelling at each other. Because like suddenly, like, I mean, like, especially with Han arriving in the movie, like the dialogue starts to get more casual, and modern, and and I guess one point that we talked about was how this film is really good at developing everything. It's like it's sort of like there's always more surprises and aspects of the movie that are revealed to you that you're not expecting, and so I think that it's like at every kind of point in the movie you're kind of because even like after the Death Star, like we have never seen X-wing uniforms before, or the Rebellion, really, and so suddenly it's like after everything we've been through, suddenly like we like shift into another gear, higher gear, and like we're looking at X-wings and like battle stations and like war rooms.
Yeah,
and
the stuff that Luke, when he finds out that the droids know about the rebellion, he's talking about the rebellion like it's like very far away and we're never gonna get there.
Yeah.
We need to do that in another movie, and then bam, we're there. And I always forget. So there's so much resolution that happens throughout that makes you like it like pings something inside of you. You're like, oh yes, he's going on the journey. They're like, yes, he's gonna like. It keeps happening throughout. And so one of those pings, what you're talking about is us being in the war room. And I always forget that we actually get to see the Death Star blown up. We actually get to see them talking about how they're going to blow it up. And then we get to see them blow it up. And the resolution, the end of this movie was not Obi-Wan dying on the Death Star. Because that could have been the end of this movie.
I mean, it's insane that it's not because that's so epic.
Yeah.
Like just like getting like that's a whole movie in and of itself. Yeah. And then the fact that there's like this cherry on top, which is insane, which is like that's the thing. It's like everything in the movie I feel, both in terms of the culture at the time and the way that the story unfolds is like we keep getting new information. Like that one little note about oh shit, like R2-D2 can go into the X-wing.
Oh yeah, I love that you pointed that out.
And it's like we don't need to know that, but I feel like in other movies we would have that kind of information.
They would have told us, oh hey, that's an R2 droid that can also fit inside of X-wings.
Yeah.
That can fight the Empire.
Right.
But and if you keep thinking about that thought, these R2 units, they don't go inside of TIE fighters.
No.
Right? But the Empire uses R2 units just as much as the Rebellion's using R2 units. And the Rebellion built ships. All of their ships function with a droid inside of them. Yet, well, most all of their fighters do. But what Imperial ship can you think of that functions?
I've never thought about that.
I haven't either.
That's a good point.
I mean, that just hit me. That's so cool. But that's the whole point here, and that's the whole point you brought up.
And the fact that I feel like George Lucas thought about that stuff. Like he was consciously thinking, I believe, about how do I reveal this information? And even if it's as small as, hey, like, guess what? This cool R2 unit that's like been the hero the whole time, like he's gonna go into the X-wing, and like be his buddy, like in the space battle. That I feel like Lucas is consciously aware of what the audience's experience will be like with this new type of movie, and so he's anticipating what we need to find out at any given moment, what we don't know, and like what are the things that he can say for us to keep kind of like giving us little breadcrumbs
Yeah,
to keep us
that
interested.
well, and I should make
We're constantly interested at every moment and learning things. In this
we're
movie.
getting those pings, right? And
Pings.
and what I was doing that people can't see on this podcast was like it's a feel good box that you're checking inside of you. That's what I mean by ping, right? This
Yeah.
like feel good little endorphin release of like,
Oh shit, that's cool. That's
yeah,
new.
whoa, yeah. Anyway, that
I feel that, and I feel that happens like that. I mean, I never really thought about it until as much in this viewing, and I feel like it happens a lot in this movie, and I don't know if it happens as much in
Empire.
in Force
Oh,
Awakens.
of Force. Okay.
And like and not to keep comparing the two,
Well,
but I mean,
they did it themselves.
but
They did, but they knew what they were doing. I mean, they knew that people were going to have those conversations, and they knew that people were going to. There was no cloak and dagger on them, basically taking. And we talked about that. Them taking all these great elements from A New Hope and putting them into like a new environment with new characters. And a point I brought up about Force Awakens was new characters doing old roles, but in different settings and at different times during the story. They totally knew what they were doing. I mean, there's no question there,
Yeah.
right? And I'll say it again. They took a lot of baggage. They took a lot of expectation, and they delivered something that there's I don't know what could have been different to make it better. I don't know. I mean, you could have stripped some of the, but this goes back to this was supposed to be a standalone movie, right?
I mean, I think that he did have plans for sequels because he wrote like so much material that he was like, I guess we'll just take the first the first third of this and make just one movie, or whatever,
But from like this could flop or make it.
Absolutely.
Nobody had any idea that it was gonna make such a splash.
It's funny.
In our
too.
culture.
It's funny because it's kind of like you're in and out too. Like the Death Star is blown up. R2 maybe he's dead, and and then they're like is he, like, C-3PO's like, is he gonna be okay? And then Luke's like, yeah, he's fine. And like they just take off.
It'd be okay.
Yeah,
I've seen this before.
Yeah, like see you later. and then we're just straight into the medal ceremony.
Bam, and R2's.
And he's fine, and the movie's over. And it's just like suddenly it's just like
Chewbacca snubbed again.
He's snubbed. But
Well, that was his first snubbing.
That was the first snubbing.
No medal
And
in the ceremony.
We're just yeah, he didn't get a medal in the ceremony. He didn't get hugged by Leia in Force Awakens. Confusing, but
which JJ addressed.
Yeah. And I think these are oversights. These are big oversights. But the film is over, and like if the movie was supposed to be a standalone, like one and done thing, it's kind of funny that they're like, we set out to make a space fantasy, and where like the guy rescues the princess and blows up the fortress, and we did it, and now we're done. See you later. And the movie just kind of like ends on the highest note. And do you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, let's just jump ahead. I know we're gonna watch
Yeah.
Empire next, but let's compare it to the end of Empire. The end of Empire is like it's very, very clear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of loose ends that are left at the end of Empire. That there are almost no loose ends. So Darth Vader's like pummeling off into space, right, in his ship. But
what a great like last image.
a Vader
Yeah, just like woo.
about to like puke in his mask.
Yeah.
But that could have even been a resolution. That could have been the end of Vader, and we could have just, in our heads said, "Oh yeah, he died."
Yeah.
Right. Everyone on the Death Star died. We can just assume that was like most of the Empire, 3/4 of the Empire. Vader, their lord, whatever, is who we don't really understand. That is like flying off into space. He's dead. What else is there for? And at the end of this movie, we are led to believe that like Empire done.
It's done.
Done. Rebellion won. Let's get back to like taxes and arguing about other stuff that doesn't involve fighting the Empire.
I think I really like this ending. I mean, like I don't know if the like just that final image of all them standing there.
Oh, okay.
And the music.
Oh, with like the medals and like the pomp and
just the music, and then like how it kind of like crescendos and it's like and then like goes and
boom.
Yeah, and it's just like every time I hear that score and like that scene, it's just like such a jolt of energy.
Yeah.
It's like
it ends on a really high note.
It ends on such a high note, and it's like when it cuts to like Lucas and the Starfield, and you're like, holy fuck, that was awesome. And I'll say this: end credits of movies are so important. I think a lot of the times it's like I hate when movies like end on like crane shot. And then like the fucking
like the wide like
yeah, just like the pull out, and then like the fucking credits start rolling up, and you're just like, this is lame. But
like a Lord of the Rings, like
yeah, just like
starting in Mars or like pushing in or pulling out.
Just boring and like
yeah.
But like this, it's like the whole thing is like this gymnastics routine, and they stick the landing and like punctuate it or like exclamation
point. They do,
it.
and they get gold medals.
And they get gold medals.
They do, and then it ends on like the highest energy note.
Yeah. And so I mean, like, I guess just like going back to 77, like that would have been so fucking cool to be in the theater and go through that whole experience, and then have those credits like slam
for four
for the very first one.
Yeah, 77.
And just be like, that was like the most exciting thing I've ever seen in my life.
Could you? I just imagine people just like clapping.
Yeah, clapping.
Like, what was this?
Just like a standing ovation.
Because you've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
And we watched the Blu-ray versions of these, and there was.
God damn! I wish I can't wait for Disney to like release the original versions.
Oh, in Blu-ray.
In Blu-ray.
That's gonna be awesome. So and these are filled with the Lucas, sick in the head, jam CG down our throats scenes that he went back in because he couldn't. And that is exactly addressing what we were talking about. He got scared, I think, that these movies, when they were re-released, right, they had too many gutters. And they had too many, like, okay, I want you to feel like this is Mos Eisley, or like I want you to feel like you're on Tatooine and you're in this city. So I need to add as much busy CG aliens and animals that I possibly can. And if they're not just there, they're always doing something.
They look like a fucking Onion parody video. Like in Mos Eisley, like just like the amount of like animals and shit that were crammed.
So bad.
It's so bad.
And there's no way that let's fast forward a little bit to when Han Solo is like walking behind Jabba the Hutt before it's the first time we see like the Millennium Falcon. And
I think that scene was added because now they have the technology for Jabba.
And so, but when he walks behind Jabba and like we're supposed to imagine he steps on Jabba's tail.
Wow.
It's literally like they took this square image of Han Solo and just like just like picked him up in the air, just like straight up, and then move him over and then straight down, kind of like a Minecraft. It reminded me of Minecraft, like he was like stepping over a Minecraft block. It was disgusting. That reminded me of like a 1980s arcade game. Like the graphics from that. I'm blown away how you could be sitting in an editing room, looking at that, and they're like, "Okay, Lucas, this is the best we got. This is the best we can do. What do you think?" And he's like, "Nah, I love it. That looks primo." If I was in that position, I'd be like, "That looks awful. Let's just like think of something else."
I mean,
For what it adds,
well,
it just takes
yeah, no, I mean, no, it
out so much more.
yeah, I think that like I think that there are a few moments where it's okay. I think that they like clean up the land speeder because I think
There are, but it's the subtle things.
the subtle things that you don't know, like I think it's like Game of Thrones, you know? It's like
Yeah,
Game of Thrones, David Fincher movies, Scorsese, they all seem to have this like understanding of how to use CGI in a way that you to expand like the world
exactly.
and like you don't notice it.
Paul Adams, John Adams. Sorry, the John Adams the
Miniseries?
miniseries.
Yeah.
That what have you seen that?
I have not seen it.
Watch that,
But
and then after you watch it, go look up on YouTube John Adams CG.
yeah.
It'll blow you away what was CG and what wasn't. Because all they did, like you're talking about, is they used CG to expand
Yeah.
the environment to where you believed a little bit more.
But not have giant lizards like walk right in front of the camera. And like
What was he thinking?
flying. I mean, it's it was the 90s,
It's comical.
you know.
Yeah. It
So
was like, look what we can do now.
yeah.
Let's do it all. No, don't leave it out. Let's put Pepsi in there.
Wouldn't it be
There's no
nice
Pepsi.
again with all this stuff about remakes and reboots and director's cuts and stuff? It's like, wouldn't it be great if there was just one Star Wars that we had to watch
Yeah.
instead of like one version of like A New Hope
Yeah.
versus
Well, and
every
think
other
about
cut.
like a new Fresh Eyes. Going back to Fresh Eyes, like Vicky, right? Think about her watching, and for all who don't know, that's my fiance. Think about her watching for the first time, and she did. We watched together for the first time. Well, for her, because she hadn't seen Star Wars,
Mhm.
and me having to explain, okay, this is like an updated version. In the first one, there wasn't all this like CG stuff. And didn't he doctor it 3 times, or was it just 2?
I don't. I mean, there was the VHS box set that came out that I think was the last like untouched.
Those were from theaters, because I thought that he doctored those a little bit.
No. It was like I think it was the DVD releases
Okay.
that were different.
Okay, so twice.
Yeah, they came out in theaters first,
Yeah,
and then were put on DVD and
or I guess once,
Yeah.
technically. Anyway, it'll be nice when Disney releases those.
okay, but
If
that's the thing about Lucas though. You know, it's like he is the reason why any of this stuff exists. Like it all came from him, and I guess I can understand that if he had a vision or a dream for this stuff in the first place, and that we actually didn't get to see his vision in 1977, and now we have the technology to do it in the 90s, that he was like, if he thought he was making it better, you know, like, you know, I'm sure it was partly also because he wanted to advance technology and all this stuff, but like he thought it was going to be better, and I don't know, it's like you watch this movie and I just think it's important to remember, like, I think above all else, like, George Lucas is fucking awesome. Like, it's so easy to sort of let the prequels cloud our judgment or our memories
of what he gave us.
about what he gave us.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, this is one of the greatest films of all time, and he fucking wrote it and directed it and like had the vision for all of the shit that had to happen.
No doubt, man. No
And-
doubt. And
you know,
even Ron Howard makes mistakes, right?
yeah.
So it's I agree. I'll episode 1 I have a tough time forgiving him for. But there are things of that movie, there are parts of that movie that like I do like. And there are segments that I thought were awesome, and I did love seeing more of his vision of what he really wanted it to be, and because that was right. I mean, that was him getting to really show us what he wanted to really show us with Star Wars. With like, he got too deep. He got too deep into too much detail, which happens, and that's. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that is Vicky getting water. That's nobody urinating. So I dig that with episode 1. But anyway, this has gone on for too long, and we should end things.
Longer than planned, and there's so much. I feel like there's so much more to talk about with A New Hope, but I give it 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it recently, watch it again. I'm telling people.
And and I guess
Not you. You just
that probably an interesting way to watch it is to watch it as a double feature with
7.
with Force Awakens, because it is interesting to compare
Yeah.
the two.
I think they're 2 different monsters when you compare it side by side. So, but anyway, thanks for listening to episode 4. On episode 4.
That's a wrap.
That's a yeah. I think we should conclude with a Nikhil saying every podcast. So
Check you later.
okay.